The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.
They can tell 'cause I can turn and run, but there's more that I can do. Now this is war, now this is war. No, I won't stop now, I'm the fire breaking through. Now this is war, now this is war.
Well, we promise we won't have a war on this podcast. This is the WWE 205 Live review for March 7th, 2017. I am your host, Sean Garmer, and with me here, as always, Mr. Paul Leazar.
Heyo.
And Mr. Gary Vaughn is here as well.
What is up?
So we got the full crew to talk about this 205 Live, where the man with the big package, and he also happens to be the greatest man that ever lived, Austin Aries, debuted. And he's so great that he didn't have just one segment. He had two segments on this 205 Live. So, that's how much we were all anticipating him showing up on this show. Although I think by the time we got to the second segment, the fans were not as enthused to see him, which is kind of sad. But, yes, so they started with an Austin Aries interviewing himself, which I think Austin Aries is so talented, he's one of the few people that could really do this and actually make this work. I was laughing at the parts where he was interviewing himself, and then, you wanted to pay attention to what he was saying as far as, how great he is, and that he finally got to bring Neville down, and then we got to get Neville coming out here, and they basically talked about what level they were on. So, Austin Aries talked about how he's on the A double level, which is higher than Neville, and well, Neville has his own level. Neville created his own level, try to say that 5 times fast. But Neville says he's on the Neville level, which no one in 205 Live is on. Man, so do we get to play as this Neville level in the next WWE game? Is that how that works? But honestly, I thought that, for a first sort of, well, I guess this is the second time, first on 205 Live of them bantering with each other. This was good, and it sort of got you kind of into these two having a match with each other.
I question if outsiders really feel like Austin Aries is on that same level, and maybe they don't care at this point. But I certainly, somebody who can go promo to promo with Neville here is great. I felt like this really sold everything pretty well. And, Austin Aries just comes off already like such a great character that, I don't know, you feel, I don't want to say you're automatically behind him, but I think you're already invested in him, not only just from him doing commentary, but from just from the work he did on this show.
I agree with that because, I think a lot of fans have kind of gravitated towards him, but it hasn't really been because of his in-ring action. There's not been a lot of it because he's been out injured. So it's kind of hard to say that for a majority of people, but I think there are quite a few people who are really into Austin Aries because, he just portrays himself very well and always has. All of us, on the show have watched him in other places. We've seen him in, just do some great things, but it's not been a part of WWE television. So all the people that just watch WWE have to come and see this guy, and he's kind of a fresh face for them. So I think we kind of look at it from a different perspective. I think what he's doing here with Neville is a good deal. I think this is their best opportunity to have a really awesome match at WrestleMania between two guys who are veterans who know the way around the ring pretty darn well. So I'm looking forward to this. I really, really am. I think they did a good job in this promo. It wasn't, blow you out of the water or anything, but at least it sets the table. I really feel like it does. And then from here, I think they'll do some more interesting things. The one thing, though, is the fact that, you do have that A double level. The question for me is, they need to come out, are they ever going to come out with a pie chart or maybe a letter scale? Because I know you got the, A double, then you got the B plus player, then you got the C nation. I mean, you could go on with all these, alphabetical letters and see what level who's on what and all this. So we need to figure that out.
Track somebody's career over what level they're on based on letters there.
Yeah, like the C Nation. I mean, you would think that would be one of the highest levels, right? Or the B plus player, maybe that's somewhere mid level.
Well, the obvious. Well, I'm gonna guess by the letters that the A double level would be better than the B plus player level. So.
Well, you'd think, but this is WB we're talking about. Things are kind of like a Wonderland, right? It's kind of backwards at times.
Oh man. So, before Austin Aries has his match with the premier athlete, Tony Nese, Neville does get on commentary to say that there's gonna be a new contender next week. Forget what Austin Aries said. We're gonna have a new contender on 205 next week, but Austin Aries is gonna pay for what he has said about Neville and everybody else on 205 Live on commentary. Interesting that we did have Nese say during this match that Austin Aries doesn't belong here, so they are kind of painting him as a outsider that is sort of putting himself into this division. And this was a good match between the two. Austin Aries, you got to see what he does if you haven't seen him wrestle before, which is very likely for some of these crowds because we've said this many times, but there are a lot of WWE fans that don't watch NXT. And he's also not been on NXT in a long time, so there's possible a chance if you started watching NXT recently, you haven't seen him for a while. So, I thought this was fine in that. It was funny that Morrow didn't know a lot of Aries' moves, even though, I swear he's had to have seen him wrestle. So Corey Graves kind of getting to crack him about that several times was a fun part of the commentary, but Austin Aries wins as you would expect in your main event.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like he's beating chopped liver here. Tony Nese is I think the gateway guy essentially to the top for the cruiserweight division right now, which is fine, but I think I would have rather had Aries win in a little bit more dominant fashion here just to show that he could sort of, hang with the best of them and even better than a lot of the guys who have been around. But I understand you can't sail the boat on a lot of the guys you have that have names. So overall, this is fine. Hopefully we get to see some more Aries in the coming weeks. And they're probably going to build this match more on the promo side, if anything, than what they're going to do in the ring.
Yeah, I really strongly feel like Tony Nese is going to eventually be a cruiserweight champion. Now, how soon is that going to be? I don't know, but I'm glad that Paul just made that comment about being the gateway guy because he really is, and I think there's a reason for that. So there'll be great things ahead of him. So I'm not worried about him at all. And you definitely didn't expect Austin Aries to lose this match. But here's the thing. I love the fact that they had this storyline of, sure, Neville may be the main goal, but there are a lot of guys who are kind of pissed off. I mean, this is the guy who sits around and just tells us how awful we are or we're not doing things right, but he's just sitting in the commentary booth. So it's really cool that they added this part in, especially for us to also have some kind of, decent matches moving up to WrestleMania, but you don't give anything away, right? You're not having to have him, get in the ring against Neville. In fact, you don't even really have to have him in any mixed tags. You could just have him, fight this roster till he does get to that point of WrestleMania. So I think it's a good deal. It's smart, and it's also a way to kind of progress what's going on here, and people get a chance to see Austin Aries. I mean, Sean, you're very right. Not everybody watches NXT, and even if you just started, you still haven't seen him. So now we get people's attention and we get people understanding who Austin Aries is and why we love him and why WB, wants him around. So to me, it's all the way around a good deal.
You have to wonder. Vince must really like the fact that he gets to talk. He talks about his package a lot. I'm sure Vince is like, oh God, just like when I talked about my grapefruits. Just keep talking about your package. But anyway, somebody, Alicia Fox gets another package. Not that kind of package. She gets some chocolates. I don't know what she does with Noam Dar's package. That's between them. But she got flowers last week. This week she got chocolates from a delivery guy. Noam Dar just freaking out. He scares off the guy, but later he asks Jack Gallagher and Rich Swann backstage, hey, did you happen to see who it was last week that delivered the flowers? Because he really didn't deliver those flowers. But Rich Swann and Gallagher ask him, like, dude, weren't you the one that delivered the flowers? He sort of tries to get out of it. And then Jack Gallagher's like, whatever, I just want to know about this hip-hop thing, dude. And that ends the segment. I about died of knowing that Gallagher wants to know about hip-hop. That was great. And then when they have this match, which, was fine until they decide that they do too much of preventing Gallagher from tagging Rich Swann, which makes the crowd not care, which sucks because they were really kind of into Gallagher for a while. But Rich Swann gets the Phoenix Splash and he wins, and Noam Dar and Arya Daivari lose again.
It's a big surprise, right? I mean, we kind of figured that they would take the fall. Daivari tends to be that type of guy. So is Dar. But I mean, in the end, we get a pretty okay match. I mean, I enjoyed it for what it was worth. I kind of, like I said, I kind of knew the direction they were going here. So what I will say about this whole thing is they continue the thing with Alicia Fox and Dar and the presence and all that. And I am curious who it is. I really am. And for her to get that candy heart, and all that, I just kind of wish she would have opened it and it would have been something like really disgusting in there. That way he'd take credit for it and she'd be like, "You're disgusting," or But I think they want to progress this a little longer, and that's fine. And the other thing I'll say is, my God, in that backstage segment that they showed in the locker room, I don't know, but I don't know if it was lighting or what, but Jack Gallagher looked even whiter than I've ever seen the guy. I mean, my God. I don't know what it was, but I was
he's
like,
pretty
dear
white
God.
already.
I know, and that's what I think it's usually when he's in the ring, all the bright lights, kind of, the mat and all that, kind of, let him fade in. Backstage, I think with the lockers and all that, it's like, oh my God, he's blinding me. For God's sakes, put on a shirt.
Is he more blinding than Sheamus?
Oh, man, I don't know. It's pretty close. It is pretty darn close.
I mean, they don't get a lot of sun over there on the British Isles, so you gotta cut them some slack. But
Yeah.
I it's very clear WWE thinks very highly of Noam Dar, and they want to do something with him. But I just don't care. Like, I really don't. He's a great wrestler, right? And I've seen a lot of good work for him. I'm still struggling to connect with him in all of this, and he's funny at times, and the Alicia Fox thing is working to a degree, I think, for him. I'm still waiting to have that moment where I connect with him, because that's really what they seem like they're after right now, and it's just not happening. Pairing him up with Daivari ain't gonna help him either.
No.
Oh, well, no. I don't think that helps anyone, but, Noam Dar gets paired up with everyone on 205 Live, apparently.
Right.
He's kind of that comedy guy in a way, because he finds himself in all these bad situations. He's also in that role of at this point the guy to kind of be the stepping stone for people. But I think that'll change eventually. I think that Dar will eventually have his day in the sun, which Jack Gallagher needs badly. And I think that it's a situation where I really look, like I said, Tony Nese is going to be great. I think Dwar eventually will get to the point where we're talking about him being in that main event picture for the cruiserweights, and on 205 Live, I guess I should say.
God, needs to stay in the sun. Just, man, before Jack Gallagher, he just, you can't catch a break with that. So the final thing here is, we were promised another lesson for Akira Tozawa on 205 Live, and he found out that, well, quite literally, he didn't mean the Brian Kendrick. He just meant that Akira Tozawa is going to wrestle a Brian Kendrick. Notice the difference in articles there. Articles being that the and a and an are articles. But, yeah, Akira Tozawa just killing a jobber, alright. But I think that they are really stretching this, and they're going to run the risk of maybe it hurts both guys and nobody winds up caring, and any kind of progress that you've made with Tozawa at all, it is not good. It's going to go down the toilet because they're going to be like, we're really just making this feud keep going for no reason.
I mean, isn't that where we're sort of at, right? I mean, they haven't really, I think, followed up from that first match really well, and this didn't do it any favors in my opinion. I mean, Tozawa fucking murders the guy, so maybe this shouldn't be too big a deal, but really need the next part of this feud to come sooner rather than later.
I mean, he literally almost murders him because the guy almost takes the Rana wrong and freaking, could have broken something, but...
In store for a bad day right there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of enjoy the silliness of this. It's kind of one of those things that we've seen off and on, and I appreciated it for what it was worth. You get the guy getting in the ring, and he at least got his shots in. That's what's important to me. I kind of expected this to last all of 3 seconds, but I mean, honestly, this guy, I guess you have to call him a Brian Kendrick. Got some, some shots in that kind of made you feel like, oh, this guy could, not win, but could do some damage to Tozawa. But in the end, nope, Tozawa's the guy, and it works. Now, how great is this? I don't know. I mean, I think Tozawa is a great star for the cruiserweights. I think he's going to be something good, and I think Brian Kendrick's fine. But like Paul was kind of alluding to, and I think both of you guys have kind of said this, there's a sense of drab here, and I want it to be better. And if they're going to do this, they need to hurry and just have the freaking match, unless they can find a way to really spread it out. But if you spread it out much more, you're going to lose total interest. And I'm getting close to it. Getting close.
Yeah, I think totally agree with you on that. We're getting close to where this is becoming annoying to sit through, but who knows? They're going to have to close this, because you imagine that you'll try to involve a bunch of the cruiserweights into one match outside of the title match to do something on the pre-show. So I can't imagine that feud's still going and we're going to have Tozawa and Kendrick in a singles match or something. They got to get the cruiserweights on there besides just Aries and Neville. But alright, I think that's going to do it for us talking 205 Live for this show. Of course, you can listen to all of our other single reviews, whether it's Raw, SmackDown, NXT for this week. Obviously, hasn't happened yet, but we'll do that one on our regular Thursday to Friday on demand there. And we'll also be doing a New Japan look back at the anniversary show, and also getting to give our predictions for the New Japan Cup that's happening this weekend. And of course, talking about predictions, if you want to listen to Gary and Paul give predictions on the W10 Part 1 for the ROH 15th anniversary pay-per-view happening on Friday, you can do that as well as hear us talk about the Hardys possibly going to ROH and TNA adding a bunch of people, which you'll get to see some of them on the TNA that happens on Thursday night. So, alright, well, until we meet again, which the next time you can listen to us, of course, is the NXT review and the W10 Part 2 episode. But until next week with 205 Live, we'll see you later, everybody.
The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.